make better decisions, and feel more confident in your choices, this video is for you. Improving your critical thinking skills isn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about training your mind to see things more clearly, question what you hear, and find better solutions to everyday problems. Imagine waking up each day with a sharper mind, ready to tackle challenges without feeling overwhelmed or confused. What if you could stop doubting yourself and start trusting your judgment more? That kind of mental strength comes from learning simple habits anyone can practice. In this video, I'm going to share practical steps that you can apply right away to boost your critical thinking. These are not complicated theories or fancy tricks, just real, useful advice you can use in your daily life. You'll learn how to slow down your reactions, choose your thoughts intentionally, test ideas with real proof, and much more. By the end, you'll see how small changes in the way you think can lead to big improvements in your life. This is about growing your mind, gaining clarity, and building discipline that lasts. So stay with me, and let's start sharpening your thinking today. Chapter 1. Strengthen your mind by asking better daily questions. Every day, from the moment we wake up to the moment we lay our head down at night, our mind is busy interpreting, evaluating, and deciding. Most of the time, we don't notice it. We move through the hours based on habit, routine, and automatic responses. But behind every thought, there is a question. Behind every action, there is a belief we rarely stop to examine. And the quality of our questions, those silent recurring whispers we direct inward, shapes the strength of our thinking, the direction of our day, and ultimately, the outcome of our life. If we want to improve our critical thinking, we must begin by asking better daily questions. A weak mind asks vague, reactive questions like, "Why does this always happen to me?" or "What's wrong with everything today?" These kinds of questions are traps. They lead to narrow thinking, reinforce negative beliefs, and keep us stuck in loops of blame and confusion. On the other hand, a strong mind asks clear, productive questions like, "What can I learn from this?" or "What's the next right step here?" These questions open doors. They push us forward. They force us to become more aware, more honest, more responsible for what we think and how we choose to live. Changing the way we ask questions doesn't require intelligence. It requires courage. The courage to face ourselves, the discipline to slow down, the patience to seek truth even when it's uncomfortable, and the humility to accept that growth begins when we stop assuming we already have the answers. Asking better questions isn't about sounding wise or pretending to be deep. It's about becoming fully present with what's really going on inside us and around us. When your morning starts with the question, "What's the most important thing I need to do today?" rather than "How fast can I get through this day?" you begin with clarity instead of pressure. When you face a disagreement and ask, "What is this person really trying to say?" instead of "Why are they so difficult?" you train empathy instead of judgment. That shift changes everything. Good questions reveal your character. They show what you value, what you avoid, and how you think. If you constantly ask questions that focus on blame, you train your mind to avoid responsibility. If your questions focus on what you can improve, you train your mind to build resilience. The first leads to weakness. The second builds strength. Strong thinkers don't need perfect answers. They know that perfection is an illusion. What they need is better direction, and that comes from intentional questioning. Every challenge, every setback, Every doubt becomes a doorway when you approach it with the right question. When you ask, "What is this teaching me right now?" you break the pattern of complaining, you stop running from difficulty and begin learning from it. That one question can shift your entire mindset from victimhood to leadership. The discipline of daily questioning is not complicated, but it is hard. It requires you to interrupt your automatic thinking. It demands that you listen more carefully to your own inner dialogue. It pulls you out of comfort and into responsibility. And it doesn't always feel good at first. But over time, as you build the habit, you'll notice something powerful. Clarity will replace confusion. Focus will replace distraction. Action will replace overthinking. This isn't about asking hundreds of questions and drowning in analysis. It's about asking fewer, better ones, the kind that sharpen your attention and force you to think on purpose. Imagine waking up and asking, "What kind of person do I want to be today?" Or "What mindset do I need to bring to this challenge?" These questions direct your focus like a compass. They guide your decisions and behaviors before the chaos of the day takes over. And over time, this becomes your edge. While others react, you respond. While others complain, you adjust. While others avoid hard thinking, you become stronger because of it. We live in a world that bombards us with information, but teaches us very little about how to think. Everyone has opinions. Everyone has something to say. But few people take the time to train their thinking through better questioning. Most repeat what they hear. They argue, not to learn, but to prove. They speak, not to build, but to control. This is the weakness of passive thinking. It produces noise but no direction. But when you live with the habit of strong internal questioning, you develop a mind that cannot be easily misled. You stop falling for distractions. You no longer depend on the opinions of others to form your reality. You become grounded, thoughtful, and aware. This is the foundation of a resilient life. You don't need to wait for a crisis to start asking better questions. You can begin right now. Before making a decision, ask, "Is this aligned with my values or just my emotions?" Before forming a judgment, ask, "Do I have enough information to be certain, or am I reacting out of habit?" Before quitting something hard, ask, "What might I regret more, pushing through or walking away?" These questions are not magic, but they are mirrors. They reveal what's driving you, and they help you see clearly when emotion clouds your judgment. It's also important to ask questions that challenge your comfort. Growth is uncomfortable. Most people avoid it because it forces them to change. But if you want a stronger mind, you must be willing to ask, "Where am I lying to myself?" Or "What truth am I avoiding because it's painful?" These are difficult questions, but they are the ones that matter most. They bring pain, yes, but also freedom. Because when you face the truth, you stop being controlled by fear. Better questions also improve your relationships. When someone disagrees with you, ask yourself, what experience might have shaped their view, or what are they trying to protect by holding this belief? These questions soften your ego and open the door to understanding. You stop reacting and start connecting. This doesn't mean you always agree, but it means you are thinking clearly, not emotionally. And that's the difference between conflict and growth. Asking better questions also improves how you handle failure. Instead of "Why am I so bad at this?" you ask, "What skill do I need to build to get better?" Instead of "Why did I mess up again?" you ask, "What pattern is repeating and how can I change it?" This shift turns failure into fuel. You stop seeing mistakes as proof of your limits and start seeing them as signals for what to improve. The most important thing to understand is that your questions shape your reality. Your brain is always listening. If you ask shallow questions, it gives you shallow answers. If you ask smart, focused questions, it begins to search for solutions, not problems. This is how change happens from the inside out. Start small. Begin your mornings with one strong question: what kind of person do I want to be today? Write it down. Reflect on it, then act on it. During the day, when something frustrates you, ask, what is this moment teaching me? Before you go to sleep, ask, what did I learn about myself today? These are not just routines, they are disciplines of the mind. They rewire your thinking, little by little, until your entire life becomes sharper, calmer, and more intentional. Most people never question their thinking. They confuse speed with intelligence, loudness with truth, and certainty with wisdom. But the strong thinker understands that asking the right question is more important than having the right answer. Because the right question opens the mind. It forces you to examine your assumptions, to pause your emotions, and to rise above impulsive reactions. It turns noise into clarity. This is what separates those who grow from those who stay stuck. The ones who grow are not always the smartest, but they are the most curious. They are willing to be wrong. They are hungry for better thinking, and they live with a quiet strength that comes from knowing they can rely on their own mind, not because it's perfect, but because it's disciplined. So, if you truly want to strengthen your mind, don't start with new information. Start with new questions, and ask them daily, not once. Make it a habit. Build it into your routine. Write your questions in a journal. Say them out loud when you feel confused. Use them when you're angry, when you're tired, when you're unsure. That's when they matter most. Because anyone can think clearly when life is easy. The real test of strength is how you think when life is not. And remember, no one else can do this work for you. You must build your own thinking. You must train it like a muscle. The world will tempt you to copy, to follow, to rush, but your job is different. Your job is to pause, to question, to choose. That's how you build a strong mind. Not by always being right, but by being willing to think deeply, honestly, and consistently. You will notice over time that better questions change not only how you think, but how you feel. You'll stop overreacting to things that once bothered you. You'll stop chasing answers that don't matter. And you'll begin to live with more purpose, because you're no longer lost in confusion. You're thinking with clarity. The power to change your life is already within you. It starts with one simple act repeated every day, asking better questions, not to impress others, not to sound smart, but to think clearly, to see what matters, to act with strength. That is how you grow. That is how you win. And that is how you become someone who lives on purpose, not by accident. The rest of the world may chase noise, but you will choose thought. And from that, everything changes. Chapter 2. Challenge your beliefs by seeking the opposite view. Every person walks through life carrying a set of beliefs that guide their choices, shape their opinions, and filter every experience they have. Most of these beliefs were formed early, without our full awareness. They came from parents, culture, teachers, media, past pain, and personal wins. We absorb them naturally, then carry them unconsciously. They influence how we see people, how we handle conflict, how we define success, and how we respond to failure. But very few of us stop to ask if those beliefs are actually true, or if they are just familiar. If you want to grow mentally and emotionally, you must challenge your beliefs by actively seeking the opposite view. This isn't about becoming a contrarian. It's about becoming grounded in reality rather than comfort. Comfort holds tightly to what feels right. Growth looks deeper to find what is right. When you train yourself to look at views that oppose your own, you stretch the limits of your understanding. You test what you believe, not to prove others wrong, but to make sure you're not fooling yourself. There's strength in doing that. It means you care more about truth than ego. A weak mind defends itself with certainty. It shuts out anything that contradicts its beliefs. It sees disagreement as an attack. But a strong mind does something different. It listens, not to obey, not to agree blindly, but to learn. A strong thinker can sit with an uncomfortable idea, not because they accept it, but because they want to understand it fully before they judge it. That's where real thinking begins. When you seek the opposite view, you disrupt your bias. Bias is what causes people to interpret the world in ways that confirm what they already believe. It makes you blind to evidence that contradicts your opinions. It pushes you to gather information in ways that protect your identity instead of revealing the truth. You stop seeing things as they are, and instead, you see them as you want them to be. This is dangerous, not just intellectually, but in every area of life. It keeps people stuck. It keeps teams divided. It keeps leaders from making good decisions. But when you train yourself to examine the other side honestly, your view becomes clearer. You stop operating from fear and start operating from awareness. It doesn't take brilliance to do this. It takes discipline. It's easier to only follow people who agree with you. It's easier to shut down arguments that make you uncomfortable. But ease doesn't build mental sharpness. Effort does. When you hear a view that goes against yours, stop and ask what part of this could be true. You don't have to agree with it. Just explore it. Then ask, why do I believe what I believe? Where did it come from? Have I tested it recently? These questions open a window in the mind. They bring light into dark corners you haven't visited in a while. Most people confuse agreement with validation. They want the world to reflect back their beliefs so they can feel safe. But seeking only agreement makes you fragile. It makes you defensive when challenged. It creates an illusion of certainty that falls apart under pressure. On the other hand, when you expose your beliefs to opposition and they still stand, you become more grounded, not less. You're no longer held up by emotion, you're held up by clarity. This mindset matters in every part of life. In your work, if you only look for evidence that your strategy is right, you miss critical flaws. But if you ask, what would someone who disagrees with me say about this plan? You find weaknesses before they become failures. In relationships, if you assume your way is the only right way, you create distance. But if you ask, how might they be seeing this situation differently? You create space for connection and resolution. In personal development, if you protect every belief from being questioned, you stay stuck in the same mental cycle, never learning, never improving. The moment you feel defensive is often the moment you need to lean in. Discomfort is not a sign of danger, it's a sign of growth. When someone presents an opposite view, resist the urge to react. Don't rush to prove them wrong. Just sit with it. Think. Ask yourself what they might be seeing that you're not. Even if they're completely off base, the process of investigation makes your thinking stronger. It forces you to be honest about your own blind spots. It's also important to understand that seeking the opposite view isn't about abandoning your principles. It's about refining them. When you examine opposing ideas, you don't become weaker in your beliefs. You become wiser. You're no longer attached to being right. You're committed to being effective. And that shift makes your thinking more dynamic, more responsive, and more powerful in real-life situations. The best thinkers in history didn't surround themselves with agreement. They sought out challenge. They tested their ideas in the fire of contradiction. They invited disagreement, not because they wanted conflict, but because they wanted to see the full shape of the truth. They knew that thinking in a vacuum creates illusion, but thinking with friction builds strength. In daily life, you can practice this by intentionally reading or listening to sources that don't align with your beliefs. If you have a strong opinion on a topic, find someone who disagrees and listen with the goal of understanding, not debating. This doesn't mean giving up your values. It means expanding your mental reach. Ask questions like, what evidence do they rely on? What assumptions am I making? Is there any part of this I haven't considered? These questions force your mind to operate on a higher level. One of the greatest habits you can build is the ability to separate your identity from your beliefs. You are not your opinions. You are the one who forms them, questions them, changes them, and refines them. When you tie your identity too tightly to your current beliefs, you become defensive and rigid. But when you hold your beliefs lightly, ready to strengthen them through challenge or revise them when needed, you grow with integrity. You move through the world with confidence, not because you're always right, but because you're always learning. True mental strength comes not from being certain, but from being open. Not gullible, not weak, open to nuance. Open to refinement, open to the possibility that what you believe today may need to evolve tomorrow. That's not instability. That's maturity. Seeking the opposite view also helps you develop humility. It reminds you that you don't see the full picture. It brings you back to the mindset of a student, curious, questioning, alert. This mindset is rare. It's uncomfortable, but it's the gateway to wisdom. When you live with that posture, you stop fearing contradiction. You begin to welcome it, because you know it's shaping you into someone who doesn't just think more, but thinks better. And in the end, that's what matters. Not just having beliefs, but having beliefs that have been tested, stretched, challenged, and refined. That's how you grow stronger. That's how you make better decisions. And that's how you live a life built on awareness, not assumption. Chapter 3. Train your focus by removing daily mental noise. Focus is one of the rarest and most valuable skills in today's world. Everywhere you look, something is trying to take your attention. Messages flash across your screen. Notifications buzz in your pocket. Thoughts race through your mind. And even when you're physically still, your brain can feel like it's running in 100 directions. Most people live in a state of constant distraction. But focus isn't a gift you're either born with or without. It's a discipline you build, and it starts by clearing out the noise that fills your mind every day. Mental noise is the background clutter that drowns out your ability to think deeply. It's the random thoughts, worries, urges, and half-finished ideas that never settle. It's the mental tabs left open from yesterday's problems, tomorrow's plans, and everything in between. You can't think clearly when your attention is pulled in 10 directions. You can't make wise choices when you're overwhelmed by too much input. The first step to training your focus is removing what doesn't need to be there. Start by looking at how your day begins. Many people open their eyes and immediately reach for their phone. They scroll through updates, answer messages, check news, and consume opinions before their own mind has even had a chance to breathe. When you begin your day reacting to outside input, you lose control of your inner space. Instead of starting with intention, you start with interruption, and that choice ripples through the rest of your day. A clear mind requires boundaries. What you allow in is just as important as what you keep out. One of the strongest habits you can build is taking a moment of silence before your day begins. Just sit, breathe. Let your thoughts settle without grabbing onto any of them. You don't need to solve anything right away. You don't need to jump into productivity. You just need to return to a state of presence. In that stillness you begin to notice how loud the world usually is. And once you become aware of the noise, you can begin to do something about it. Mental noise also comes from trying to do too much at once. The brain doesn't multitask the way people think it does. It switches quickly between tasks, but each switch drains energy. Every time you go from one task to another, your brain has to reorient itself. That constant switching leaves your attention scattered. To train focus, you must learn to do one thing at a time. It sounds simple, but it takes practice. Choose a single task, remove everything unrelated to it. Set a timer, and devote your full attention to just that one thing. At first you may find it hard. Your mind will want to wander. That's normal. Bring it back. Gently, firmly, consistently. Over time this becomes easier. What you're doing is retraining your brain to stay present. Another source of mental noise is unresolved decisions. When you avoid making choices, they pile up in the back of your mind. You may not even notice them, but they drain energy. Each delay adds a layer of uncertainty. To quiet this noise, review the small decisions you've been putting off. Make a list, then take action. It could be scheduling an appointment, replying to a message, organizing a space, or committing to a plan. Every choice you close frees up space in your mind. You don't need to solve everything right now, but stop letting the avoidable things follow you all day. What you consume also plays a huge role in the noise you carry. Information is not neutral. It takes up space. When you scroll endlessly, read opinions all day, or flood your mind with news you can't control, your inner world becomes reactive and noisy. Be selective. Choose your input carefully. You don't need to know everything. You need to understand what matters. That requires clarity, not constant stimulation. Focused minds are fed by focused content. Even internal dialogue can become a source of noise. Most people have a voice in their head that never stops. It comments, criticizes, worries, plans, replays conversations, and invents scenarios. If you're not careful, this voice can lead you in circles. To quiet this mental chatter, start observing it. Step back from your thoughts and just watch them. Don't argue, don't resist. Just notice. This practice alone begins to reduce the volume. Over time, you'll realize you're not your thoughts. You're the one who sees them. That small shift brings enormous peace. Training your focus also requires creating protected time. You can't expect deep thinking to happen in an environment that constantly interrupts you. Set aside blocks of time where you're unreachable. Turn off notifications. Put your phone in another room. Let others know you're not available during that time. Focus doesn't thrive by accident. It requires intention and space. It's not always convenient, but it is always worth it. Your environment reflects your mind. Cluttered surroundings create mental friction. If your desk, room, or workspace is filled with random items, unfinished tasks, or open tabs, your mind absorbs that clutter. Take time to organize your space. Remove what you don't need. Put things in order. You'll notice a subtle shift inside. Physical clarity supports mental clarity. The outer world and the inner world are more connected than we think. Rest is also a necessary part of focus. Exhausted minds can't concentrate. If you're constantly tired, overworked, or overstimulated, you won't be able to focus, no matter how hard you try. Prioritize sleep. Step away from screens before bed. Create a winding down ritual that signals to your brain it's time to slow down. Focus is not just about what you do during the day. It's also about how well you recover. Give your brain time to rest so it can work at its best when you need it. Building focus isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. Some days will be clearer than others. That's okay. What matters is that you return to the practice. You catch yourself when you drift. You recommit to clarity. You simplify what you can. And over time, you create a mind that isn't ruled by chaos, but guided by discipline. When you reduce the noise, you begin to hear yourself again. You notice what matters. You make better decisions. You respond rather than react. You move through the day with purpose instead of just surviving it. Focus gives you your power back. It allows you to create, to grow, to lead, and to live with depth. In a world full of noise, your ability to stay clear is a rare and valuable strength. And it starts with removing what you no longer need, inside and out. Chapter 4. Test every idea by using real-life proof. Ideas are everywhere. You hear them from people, read them in books, see them in videos, and form them in your own mind. Some ideas sound wise, others sound exciting, and many sound convincing. But sounding good doesn't make something true. Thinking clearly means you don't take ideas at face value. It means you test them against something stronger than words. You test them against what actually works. You test them against real life. When you rely only on theory, you create assumptions. You expect results based on what should happen, not on what does happen. And that gap between expectation and reality is where most people become lost. They try advice that sounds smart but fails them. They hold beliefs that comfort them but lead to poor choices. They follow ideas they've never questioned and end up confused when life doesn't respond the way they hoped. The cure is simple, but not always easy. Proof over opinion. An idea has value only if it holds up in the real world. If it improves your choices, helps others, or solves a real problem, it earns its place. But if an idea weakens your results, traps you in false thinking, or leads you away from truth, it must be changed or discarded, no matter how good it sounds. Truth is not found in how loudly something is said, or how many people agree with it. It's found by testing. It's found through observation. It's found by paying attention to what actually happens, not what people promise. Start by questioning your own ideas. Ask yourself where they came from. Did you try them, or did you just accept them? Have they made your life clearer or more complicated? Do they match what you see happening around you? You don't have to abandon everything you believe, but you do need to hold your ideas with strength and humility. Strength means you're not easily shaken. Humility means you're willing to change when reality teaches you something new. This balance keeps your thinking honest. Real-life proof often begins with experience. You try something. You observe what happens. You reflect on the result. Then you adjust. This process takes patience, but it's how real knowledge is built. Don't just think about what might work. Apply it. Don't assume an idea is right because it's popular. Put it to the test. If someone tells you a strategy will bring peace, try it and see if your stress actually reduces. If a method is said to improve discipline, use it and track your consistency. If a belief is said to bring clarity, apply it during confusion and observe what shifts. Ideas that are true will prove themselves. They don't need to be defended with emotion. They hold up on their own. Be cautious with second-hand certainty. People will speak with great confidence about things they've never tested. They repeat ideas passed down from others without ever asking if they work. Just because something has been said many times doesn't make it useful. The danger isn't just in being wrong, it's in being confident about something that doesn't serve you. This kind of false confidence blocks growth. It convinces you that you already know, when in reality, you haven't looked closely enough. One of the most powerful habits you can build is tracking results. If you apply an idea, write down what happens. Measure your progress. Track how you feel. Document the effects. Over time you'll gather proof. You'll know what works for you, not in theory but in practice. This personal evidence becomes your guide. It gives you clarity. Others can't shake. It keeps you rooted in truth instead of trends. Most people don't track. They move through life by memory and emotion, which are unreliable. If you want your thinking to sharpen, let real life become your feedback system. Another benefit of testing ideas is it builds resilience. When you try something and it fails, you learn. That lesson stays with you. It gives you a deeper understanding than someone who only imagines what might happen. Failure is not the enemy of truth. It's one of its best teachers. But only if you're paying attention. People who avoid testing ideas often do so because they fear being wrong. They attach their identity to being right. But this mindset keeps them fragile. Strong minds seek truth more than they seek comfort. They know that being wrong is just part of becoming wise. Also pay attention to patterns. Life leaves clues. If an idea works once, that's interesting. If it works repeatedly across situations, it's powerful. But if it only works under certain perfect conditions, it's limited. Wisdom is found in ideas that endure under pressure, stress, and challenge. A good idea doesn't just work when you're feeling great. It works when you're tired, uncertain, or under stress. That's when proof matters most. Be willing to experiment. You don't need to commit to an idea forever. You can test it for a day, a week, or a month. Keep your trials small and manageable. Try a new morning routine. Practice a different mindset during conflict. Change how you respond to setbacks. Take notes on how it affects your clarity, energy, and behavior. These small tests add up. They sharpen your judgment. They make you less dependent on guesswork. Also remember that results don't always show up instantly. Some ideas require time to reveal their truth. You must be patient and consistent. If you're testing an idea to improve your focus, for example, give it several days of honest effort before making a decision. Rushed judgments can make you abandon something valuable too early. Let time be part of your testing process. But stay honest about what you're seeing. If an idea brings more confusion than clarity, more stress than strength, more excuses than results, you don't need to keep forcing it. Let it go. Critical thinkers don't chase certainty. They seek understanding. They ask better questions. They compare results. They adjust when needed. And they stay open to learning. Their minds are not rigid but grounded. They don't argue for ideas just to win. They explore them to grow. This mindset creates freedom. It allows you to think for yourself, choose wisely, and build a life that is rooted in reality, not opinion. The world is full of noise. Everyone has a theory. But your mind is too valuable to be shaped by untested ideas. You don't have to follow what sounds right. You have the power to find out what is right. You do that by looking at what works. You do that by thinking, testing, learning, and applying. You do that by turning ideas into action and letting the results speak. This is how you build a mind that sees clearly, not through loud beliefs, but through quiet proof. Chapter 5. Sharpen your judgment by slowing down your reactions. Most people act before they think. They react instead of responding. They speak too soon, decide too quickly, and assume too often. And with every fast reaction, their judgment becomes weaker. Wisdom doesn't rush. It observes, it listens. It considers what's not being said. It creates space between what happens and how you respond to it. That space is where clarity lives, and without it, you become a slave to impulse. Slowing down your reactions doesn't mean you freeze or avoid taking action. It means you hold your ground long enough to understand what's really happening. It means you give yourself permission to wait, reflect, and assess. The sharpest minds are not those who always know the answer, but those who give themselves time to ask the right question. The moment between an event and your reaction is the moment where growth is possible. If you fill that space with automatic emotion, you lose your power. But if you fill it with awareness, you gain control. The brain is built for speed. It wants to resolve tension quickly. It wants to judge, label, and react without doing the deeper work. This mental shortcut is helpful in survival situations, but in daily life, it leads to regret. It makes you speak words you can't take back. It drives you to make decisions you later wish you hadn't. It locks you into opinions without evidence. In today's world where speed is worshipped and instant reaction is rewarded, slowing down becomes an act of strength. Slowing down means stepping back from the urge to prove yourself. It means resisting the pull to be right in every conversation. It means staying calm in the presence of chaos. When someone offends you, your first instinct might be to defend or attack. But that first reaction is often shaped by ego, not wisdom. If you pause for just a moment, you give yourself access to better options. You might decide it's not worth engaging. You might ask a clarifying question. You might see the pain behind their words instead of taking them personally. This shift changes the entire outcome. You don't need to respond immediately to most things. If someone sends you a message that upsets you, you don't have to answer right away. If a situation feels urgent, that doesn't mean it is. Urgency can be a trap that tricks you into rushed decisions. Strong judgment comes from being grounded, not pressured. People who act under pressure tend to regret their choices. People who take a breath, gather information, and wait for emotional dust to settle make better decisions. Slowing down also allows you to see the bigger picture. In the heat of the moment, everything feels large. But feelings shrink with time. What seems like a crisis now often feels small tomorrow. If you react too quickly, you give temporary feelings permanent power. But if you wait, you see the truth more clearly. Time is not just a healer, it's a revealer. It shows you what matters and what doesn't. One of the most effective practices for sharpening judgment is to build a pause into your daily responses. When you feel triggered, don't immediately respond. Sit with the discomfort. Notice your internal tension. Let your body calm before your mind acts. In that pause, ask yourself, what's really going on here? What matters most in this moment? What will I wish I had done when I look back later? These questions won't make your emotions disappear, but they give your thinking room to breathe. In conversation, listen more than you speak. Most people listen to reply, not to understand. They're waiting for their turn to speak, crafting their defense before the other person even finishes. This habit weakens your judgment. You miss context, overlook meaning, and react from assumption. But when you truly listen, you slow down the mental rush to respond. You give space for deeper understanding. You hear what isn't said. You notice tone, body language, and subtle cues. This depth of awareness leads to better conclusions. Another way to sharpen judgment is to delay important decisions. If a choice will affect your future, your finances, your relationships, or your time, don't make it in a heightened emotional state. Emotions can guide, but they shouldn't control. Sleep on big decisions. Write about them. Talk to people you trust. Examine the long-term consequences. Ask yourself how this decision aligns with your values, not just your moods. People who make decisions from impulse often find themselves trapped in consequences they didn't consider. There is a difference between acting fast and acting wisely. Speed is only useful when paired with accuracy. Without accuracy, speed becomes recklessness. The goal is not to slow down everything in life, but to slow down enough to ensure your actions are aligned with clarity. Sometimes the wisest choice is immediate, but even in those cases, it is clarity, not rush, that makes the decision strong. Learning to pause takes practice. You may still react quickly at times, but over time, the space will grow. You'll notice more. You'll catch yourself before you say something you regret. You'll stop arguments before they escalate. You'll avoid traps disguised as opportunities. You'll respond to challenges with strategy, not just emotion. And most importantly, you'll feel more in control of your own mind. True power is not loud. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't chase control. It chooses when to speak, when to act, and when to wait. Sharpening your judgment is not about becoming distant or detached. It's about becoming deliberate. It's about recognizing that every reaction shapes your path, and that slowing down is not weakness but wisdom. In a world moving faster every day, those who slow down gain an edge. They see what others miss. They make fewer mistakes. They recover faster from setbacks. They lead themselves with discipline. Slowing down doesn't mean doing less. It means doing what matters most with greater purpose. It means using your time, energy and attention in ways that align with your values, not your impulses. You don't have to live in reaction. You don't have to be ruled by urgency. You can choose calm over chaos. You can choose observation over assumption. You can choose thoughtful action over emotional reaction. And every time you make that choice, you strengthen your judgment, not by accident, not by chance, but by consistent practice of something simple and powerful, slowing down. Chapter 6. Grow your clarity by writing out your thoughts. Most people carry a storm of thoughts in their heads without realizing how much it clouds their understanding. When the mind is full of noise, scattered worries, and vague impressions, it becomes harder to see what truly matters. Clarity does not come from thinking harder, it comes from thinking better. And the fastest way to think better is to write. Writing brings structure to confusion. It makes the invisible visible. It allows you to observe your mind instead of being trapped inside it. When you write, you take what's vague and make it exact. Thoughts that feel heavy in your head often shrink once they hit the page. What felt like a tangled problem becomes a simple sentence. Writing gives shape to your emotions, your ideas, your plans, and your doubts. It helps you understand why you feel what you feel. It shows you what's behind the tension in your chest or the weight on your mind. Writing doesn't always give you answers right away, but it clears space for answers to emerge. Clarity is not about having everything figured out. It's about being honest about what you know and what you don't. When you write your thoughts out, you stop pretending. You face what's real. You see the contradictions in your beliefs. You notice how your moods affect your conclusions. You uncover assumptions that have been guiding your behavior. This is how you grow your clarity, not by chasing certainty, but by becoming more truthful with yourself. The process of writing slows your thinking just enough to catch it. When thoughts stay in your head, they blend together. One fear overlaps with another. One goal distracts from a deeper need. But when you write, each idea stands on its own. You start to notice which thoughts are helping you and which ones are not. You see the difference between worry and wisdom, between emotion and fact. Writing separates signal from noise. You don't need to write beautifully. You don't need perfect grammar. You don't even need to write for long. What matters is that you write honestly. A few minutes each day is enough to begin building clarity. Write what's bothering you. Write what you're grateful for. Write the questions you can't stop thinking about. Write the choices you're unsure of. As the words appear on the page, your mind begins to settle. And in that stillness, truth becomes easier to recognize. Many people avoid writing because they fear what they might discover. It's easier to distract yourself than to confront your uncertainty. But real growth only happens when you're willing to face your own thinking. Writing removes the filter. It shows you where you've been lying to yourself. It reveals patterns you've repeated for years. It shines a light on the thoughts you've avoided out of fear. And once you see them, you're no longer at their mercy. Writing also helps you prepare for challenges. Before an important conversation, write down what you want to say. Before making a tough decision, write down the risks and rewards. When your mind feels scattered, take 10 minutes to list your priorities. This simple act of putting thoughts into words can prevent countless mistakes. It gives you a reference point when your emotions try to take over. It creates a foundation of intention instead of reaction. If you struggle to focus, writing can bring you back. If you feel overwhelmed, writing can slow your heart rate. If you feel confused, writing can lead you toward insight. There is no situation in life that cannot be improved by gaining more clarity, and writing is the path that gets you there. You might think better when you talk to others, but even in conversation, your thoughts are shaped by social pressure, expectations, or the fear of being judged. Writing is private. It's a space where you can be fully honest without fear. That privacy creates freedom. You can say what you really mean. You can explore thoughts you're not ready to share. You can practice being real with yourself before being real with the world. Over time, writing becomes more than a tool. It becomes a habit of discipline. It keeps your thoughts in order. It reduces the chaos of your inner world. It builds the mental muscles you need to think independently, to make better decisions, and to understand yourself on a deeper level. The more you write, the more you realize how often your mind runs on autopilot. You start to challenge your automatic thoughts. You learn to think more slowly, more clearly, and more deliberately. Writing is not just for processing problems, it's also for recognizing progress. When you look back at what you wrote a week ago, a month ago, or a year ago, you begin to see how much you've grown. You see how problems that once felt massive have faded. You recognize strengths you didn't see at the time. This perspective gives you confidence. It shows you that even when life feels uncertain, you are moving forward to grow your clarity. Start by making writing a daily practice. Don't wait for inspiration. Don't wait for a problem. Just sit down and write whatever comes to mind. Let it be messy. Let it be honest. Write until the tension softens. Write until you feel your mind breathe. Some days you may only write a few sentences. Other days you may find yourself going deeper than you expected. Either way, you are training your mind to slow down and reflect. Writing is not about recording your life. It's about revealing your mind. It's about seeing what's behind your choices, your reactions, and your desires. It's about sorting through confusion to find clarity. And once you begin, you'll wonder how you lived so long without it. Because with every word you write, you strengthen your ability to think. You sharpen your awareness. You stop living passively and start engaging with your life more consciously. There's a quiet power in picking up a pen or opening a blank page. It's the moment you stop consuming and start creating. It's the moment you stop running and start reflecting. It's the moment you stop pretending to have it all figured out and begin understanding yourself for real. Clarity isn't given, it's earned, and writing is how you earn it. Chapter 7. Solve real problems by breaking them into steps. Most problems feel bigger than they are because they live in your head as one overwhelming block. They carry emotion, fear, and the pressure of time, all tied into one heavy thought that loops endlessly. You replay the situation, feel the weight of the unknown, and begin to convince yourself that it's more complicated than it is. This is what makes many people freeze, not because they can't solve the issue, but because they don't know where to start. The real skill is not brute intelligence or talent. It's the ability to break a problem down into steps so small that you stop feeling overwhelmed and start moving forward. The mind doesn't like confusion. It seeks order. When a problem is messy and undefined, it triggers anxiety. But the moment you begin to dissect it into smaller, actionable parts, It becomes manageable. The pressure decreases. Your thinking becomes sharper. You stop fearing the outcome and start understanding the process. Most people wait for motivation or clarity to appear before they act. But clarity comes from motion, not the other way around. You get clearer as you begin solving, and that begins by dividing the whole into pieces. When you're stuck with a challenge, the first step is to define exactly what the problem is, not the drama around it, not the emotions it stirs up, not the possible disasters you imagine, but the specific issue that needs solving. This forces your mind to focus. It moves you from feeling helpless to feeling capable. A problem that is clearly named is already half solved. You move from everything is falling apart to I need to renegotiate my deadline. You shift from I can't do this anymore to I need help managing this task. Specificity reduces fear. It strips the problem of its emotional fog. Next you ask yourself, what is the smallest possible step I can take? Not the entire solution, not the ideal fix, but the smallest forward movement. It could be a phone call, writing an email, listing resources, or reviewing facts. What matters is that it gets you out of the loop and into a rhythm. Small steps break inertia. They give you proof that progress is possible. They build momentum where there was none, and that movement gives you confidence, even if the full path isn't clear yet. Every big achievement is the result of tiny steps repeated over time. Solving complex issues is not about genius insight, it's about endurance and structure. The best problem solvers don't try to leap from chaos to resolution in one giant jump. They build bridges, they map out stages, they create order from the mess by seeing the layers. You can do the same by asking the right questions. What needs to happen first? Who is involved? What are the constraints? What can I influence right now? These questions shift your thinking from emotional reaction to strategic reasoning. Most people carry two versions of a problem: the real issue and their fear of what it means. That fear exaggerates consequences, misjudges timelines, and invites panic. The antidote is process. When you have a process, you become less reactive. You stop depending on willpower and start relying on a system. That system is simply a breakdown of tasks, sequenced in a way that gives your brain structure to follow. You no longer ask yourself how to fix everything. You only ask what comes next. One of the most effective tools is to write the problem at the top of a page, and then underneath, write every possible step involved in solving it. Don't judge the steps. Just list them. Include the easy ones. Include the things you've been avoiding. Include things you're not sure how to do. The act of writing them out not only clarifies the situation, but also quiets the chaos in your head. When the full list is in front of you, you stop imagining worst-case scenarios and start dealing with facts. Then you look at that list and ask, which of these steps can I do now? Not tomorrow, not next week, now. And once you complete it, you look for the next step. This isn't about speed, it's about progress. Most of life's problems are solved through patience and consistent small actions. People burn out when they try to fix too much at once. But when you focus on just the next step, you maintain energy and direction. Some problems aren't solved quickly. They require waiting, gathering information, or working with others. But even those can be broken into meaningful actions. Maybe the step is research. Maybe it's preparing a proposal. Maybe it's asking for help. You can always find a step. Even reflection is a step. Even deciding not to act yet can be a conscious part of the plan. The key is to stay out of emotional paralysis by staying in deliberate action. It's also important to accept that every step won't be perfect. You'll make mistakes. You'll rethink things. But movement brings feedback. Feedback brings clarity, and clarity improves your decisions. When you treat problem solving as a process rather than a performance, you remove the need to get everything right on the first try. You give yourself room to think, adapt, and grow. There's dignity in working through difficulty with discipline. There's power in meeting complexity with structure. Every time you solve a problem by breaking it into steps, you strengthen your ability to face life with calm and strategy. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as someone who can shape outcomes. That belief changes how you walk through the world. It builds resilience, because no matter what comes, you trust yourself to face it one step at a time. You don't need all the answers right away. You just need a method. A way to move forward without being crushed by the weight of it all. That method is always within your control. You define the problem, remove the emotion, list the steps, act on one, and repeat. In doing so, you transform chaos into clarity. And that is how real problems get solved. Chapter 8. Build your discipline by thinking before every choice. Discipline is the foundation on which all success is built. It is the quiet force behind every achievement, the steady hand that guides us through moments of temptation and uncertainty. Yet discipline doesn't happen by chance. It is not a trait some people are born with and others aren't. Discipline is a skill that grows when you decide to think before every choice you make. This moment of pause, this deliberate space between impulse and action, is where your power lies. Every day, countless decisions demand your attention. Some are small, almost automatic, while others carry weight and consequence. The habit of thinking before choosing does not require grand gestures. It begins in the everyday. When you pause to consider your options, even in minor moments, you build a muscle that strengthens your entire character. The brain learns to slow down, assess, and act with intention rather than reflex. This simple act transforms chaos into control. Thinking before making a choice means shifting from autopilot to awareness. When decisions are rushed or made emotionally, they often lead to regret or distraction. When you cultivate the habit of reflection, you give yourself time to consider outcomes, align actions with values, and avoid unnecessary mistakes. This is how discipline protects your long-term goals from the lure of immediate gratification. It creates a clear boundary between what feels good in the moment and what truly serves you. Start by recognizing the small moments where you habitually react without thought. Maybe it's reaching for your phone the second a notification pops up. Perhaps it's responding sharply to someone without listening fully. It could be eating or spending impulsively. These moments are not failures. They are opportunities to train your mind. When you catch yourself in the act, take a breath and ask what you really want in that situation. This awareness is the seed of discipline. Discipline is not about restriction or punishment. It is about freedom, the freedom to choose what aligns with your values and goals. Thinking before every choice is a way to honor yourself. It means you don't surrender control to fleeting feelings or external pressures. Instead, you stand firm in your ability to decide consciously. This practice sharpens your judgment, helps you prioritize effectively, and gradually rewires your habits. When faced with decisions, large or small, pause briefly to ask 3 simple questions. What are my options? What are the possible consequences? Which choice aligns with what matters most? Answering these questions doesn't have to take long. Even a few seconds of deliberate thought can shift your behavior profoundly. The brain thrives on patterns, and when you build this pattern consistently, you develop a reliable decision-making process. This discipline also helps you resist distractions that steal time and energy.